You've been on the road for what feels like forever, the days blending together in a blur of open highways and wide skies. Out here, between towns, there are stretches so empty you start to talk to yourself just to fill the silence. You find your mind wandering down strange paths. Why isn't anyone living on all this vacant land? How many people could fit here if we tried? And then another part of you shivers at the thought and pulls back. Maybe the emptiness is part of what makes it beautiful. Maybe there's a reason the road is long and quiet. Sometimes you go a little crazy on a road trip. There's a peculiar delirium that comes from watching the horizon for hours on end. But with that delirium comes a kind of clarity too. When you keep driving and looking for wonders, you always find something. The roads are full of them. One afternoon you crest a rise and see Mesa Verde lifting out of the desert like a dream. The top of the plateau is green with pinyon and juniper, but its sides are sheer pale rock. It's like someone lifted a giant table and set it gently on the landscape. You wind your way up a 2-lane road that clings to the edge of the mesa. The air cools and the smells change. Sage gives way to pine resin. At the visitor center, you park the car, stretch your stiff legs, and wander over to a small booth where tours are booked. A handwritten sign informs you that all the tours to Cliff Palace are full for the day. You feel a pang of disappointment. You've driven all this way, and the idea of not seeing the cliff dwellings up close makes your chest tighten. But the ranger behind the counter, a woman in a broad-brimmed hat with kind eyes and a mischievous smile, catches your expression. You tell her how far you've come, how long you've been dreaming of standing in those ancient rooms. You joke that you'll sweep the kiva floors if it means you can tag along. She laughs softly and flips through her clipboard. "I think we can squeeze you in," she murmurs, leaning in conspiratorially. "Just be ready in 5 minutes." As she hands you your ticket, she adds, almost as an afterthought, "On your way out, toss a little something extra into the donation box, will you? It helps keep this place standing." There's a sparkle in her eye that feels like a secret shared. You join a small group and follow the ranger along a narrow trail that drops into the canyon. She tells you how the ancestral Puebloans farmed the mesa tops for centuries before they began building their homes in the cliffs. As you descend wooden ladders and carved stone steps, the temperature drops, and the air takes on the cool, damp smell of stone. When you round a bend and Cliff Palace comes into view, it steals your breath. It's bigger than photographs can convey, more than 150 rooms and a couple dozen kivas, tiered up under a massive sandstone overhang. It looks both fragile and eternal, a harmony of architecture and geology. The ranger's voice becomes softer, reverent. She points out details, the small finger grooves worn into the plaster by centuries of hands, the soot-blackened ceilings where fires burned, the tiny windows positioned to catch winter light. She explains how families stored corn and beans in sealed rooms to last through winter, how they hauled water up from springs deep in the canyon, how they planned their lives around rain and seasons. She tells stories of bravery and routine, a mother balancing a basket of food on her head while climbing a ladder, a child being lowered on a rope to fetch a dropped tool, elders gathered in the kiva to tell stories that bound the community together. You can almost hear their voices echoing off the stone. You feel humbled by their ingenuity, by their understanding of place. It quiets the part of you that wondered why no one lives on those vast empty lands. Here, you see a form of settlement that respected and responded to the land rather than conquering it. As you climb back up to the rim, legs burning slightly, hands trailing along cool rock, the ranger reaches out and steadies you by the shoulder. It's a small thing, but the warmth of her hand lingers. At the top, you drop a folded bill into the donation box carved from juniper. It feels like a small thank you, not just for the tour, but for the kindness that allowed you onto it. Next door is a cafe tucked under the pines. The smell of fried dough and roasted chilies lures you in. You order a plate of fry bread drizzled with honey and a bowl of green chili stew. You carry your tray outside and sit in the shade of a pinyon, the smell of resin sweet in your nostrils. The first few bites are heavenly, rich, warm, grounding. With each spoonful, your limbs grow heavier, your eyelids droop. Maybe it's the heat, maybe it's the meal after the exertion, or maybe it's the months of driving catching up with you, but you feel yourself slipping into a pleasant stupor. The voices of other visitors become a gentle murmur, the insect buzz becomes a lullaby. You rest your head against the back of the bench and let your eyes close. What happens next is hard to explain. At first, you think you're still sitting by the cafe, but the light changes. It turns golden and thick, the way it does just before sunset in old movies. The ranger is standing in front of you, but her uniform has transformed. Her broad hat is now a headscarf woven with turquoise beads. Her khaki shirt has become a soft cotton dress, cinched with a woven belt. Bare feet peek out from under the hem. Her smile is the same, though, kind, knowing, a little mischievous. "You look like you could use a guide," she says, her voice lilting with amusement. It's both the voice you heard earlier and something older, deeper. "Come on, walk with me." You follow her down a path that doesn't quite exist. The cliff dwellings are alive around you. Smoke curls from kivas. Children dart past, their laughter echoing. She takes you to a clay pot tucked in a niche and explains how it kept seeds safe through winter. She shows you handprints painted on a wall and tells you they were blessings for whoever passed. She leads you into a room no bigger than a closet, runs her hand along the smooth plaster, and says, "Here, they slept side by side to keep warm. Listen." For a moment you think you can hear breathing, whispering, the rustle of blankets. Outside again, you stand at the edge of the cliff. The view is dizzying, miles of mesas and canyons layered in blues and purples. The wind lifts tendrils of her hair. "People think there's nothing here," she says quietly. They drive past and see emptiness, but it's full of lives and memories, of people who figured out how to live with the land, not on top of it, of kindness that spans centuries. She turns to you, and there's a softness in her eyes that makes your breath catch. She reaches up and rests her palm against your cheek in that dreamlike space, then leans in and kisses your forehead. It's not passionate, it's tender, like a blessing. The kiss feels ancient and immediate all at once, a connection across time. Your eyes close, and then something wet and scratchy drags across your face. You jerk back with a little gasp and find yourself staring into the mismatched eyes of a dog. He's medium-sized, dusty, with one blue eye and one brown, his tongue hanging out in a goofy grin. His wagging tail thumps against your leg. For a second you can't help it. You laugh. The spell is broken in the best way. A man in a straw hat hurries over, apologizing between chuckles. "Buddy here thinks everybody needs a lick," he says, clipping a leash onto the dog's collar. You wipe your face with your sleeve, still laughing, heart light. You glance around. The cafe is back. Your bowl is empty. The shadows have shifted. The ranger is nowhere in sight, at least not in the way she was. You have the distinct feeling she's still nearby, just not visible. Maybe she's walking up the path in a khaki shirt. Maybe she's centuries away. As you stand, the man tips his hat and says, "Beautiful day, isn't it?" And for a moment it feels like the world is conspiring to make sure you leave Mesa Verde smiling. You wave goodbye to Buddy, whose tail wags double time, and head back to your car. On the drive out, the late afternoon light paints everything in amber. The pinyon pines cast long shadows across the road. The vastness that felt almost oppressive on the way in now feels welcoming, like a blank canvas. You think about that gentle kiss in your trance and the sloppy kiss from Buddy that pulled you back to reality. You think about how kindness and wonder live in big gestures and small ones, in a ranger bending a rule, in an ancient people carving their lives into stone, in a dog who doesn't know you but loves you anyway. You carry those touches with you as you merge onto the highway. The road stretches ahead, but you're no longer restless. You have found what you were looking for, even though you hadn't known you were looking for anything at all. Rest now, like those ancient families rested in their cliff dwellings, safe and connected under the same eternal stars.